And we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Out of the Darkness. I am your host, Q. And I have our very esteemed producer extraordinaire here in the wilderness room. I'm really not sure exactly what to make of that, but it's cool. I like it. I like it. Definitely
Thanks.
very jungle feverish. So cool. Um,
I don't know
we'll
how I
leave.
feel about that comment on the room.
We'll leave it
Doesn't
at
really look.
that.
It looks like a jungle. I've always thought it more like a prairie or Minnesota forest.
But prairie feverish is not a thing, so it'd be kind of tough.
Sure. I mean, there were Indians here, right?
Well, you know what? Moving on. So welcome back to Out of the Darkness. It's been a heck of a week. Excited to see you guys. Excited to have you guys on the show and to have you here. It's just us. It's the original two. Unfortunately, Mr. Tim Miller is back serving the people, and so he had some things to do tonight and was not able to be with us.
Yeah, you had
But
some sort of protect the children rally in the Capitol today.
you know what? That is a good reason to miss. So protect the children. I'm all about that life. That's fantastic. So a lot of stuff to cover. A lot of stuff to cover. I want to get into it. Come on in. If you guys are just getting started, we're just getting started also. So it's exciting to get a chance to address some of these issues that have kind of been burning me up all week. So this will be kind of a little bit of a vent stream. So my therapist here, Mr. Josh or Mr. Soder, Tosh, whatever, will be
You
helping.
and Miller, jeez.
What? Anyway, what are you
and
drinking
Miller,
there
geez.
anyway? Is that the
It's whiskey and
is that homemade
Canada Dry orange.
Okay.
It's actually pretty good.
Is that cinnamon whiskey you made?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, I went and bought some. I went last Sunday. I went and bought some Canadian whiskey.
Oh, okay. All
now
right.
I'm beginning to wonder if it's Trudeau whiskey because it comes in a brown bottle.
Well, there you go. But they put it in a brown paper bag. That's the question.
No, they did not. I walked out of there without it being in a bag.
Well, see, there
Shoot.
you go.
That would have been a good joke, though.
That's really the only way to know. So I actually was going to do this stream from Canada. I was in Canada for the weekend. Yeah, I was in Canada for the weekend. Just talking to the people there. And it's very strange to me that most of them had no idea what was even going on. And those that did know what was going on were not aware that this was not just a one-time thing. This was he's a multiple offender. He is a multiple blackface wearer. So yeah, I've always thought the guy to be a little bit different, but yeah, who would have thought that he was well, actually, I'm sorry. They're calling him a brown face. A brown face wearer. So it's not blackface. Well, I mean, yeah, absolutely, but it's kind of weird because it's like, you know, if it were anybody else, it would definitely be blackface. But you know, of course, since he's doing it, yeah, it's brown face. So, but we'll leave it at that. So, but yeah, so how's your week been, bud?
Oh my gosh, what a week it's been. I had to work several nights this week, so my sleep schedule's all over the map. Literally just got back home from a homeschooling evening where everyone brings a dish, potluck evening, and there's inflatable houses, and kids get upset because they have to leave their friends. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed you there, buddy.
Yeah, I wasn't invited.
Hoping you would be there.
I wasn't invited. And to be brutally honest, I don't know that I would have shown up. And nothing offensive, but I just have this thing against eating people's food from multiple houses. Like I've got this thing about, yeah, so I don't do potlucks. I just never have. First off, not everyone practices the most sanitary, has the most sanitary practices. All right.
Okay.
And so this is what broke me of it. So I was visiting a client, right, in their home. And when I walked into the home, like I'm from Texas originally, grew up in Alaska. So Texas has something that Alaska does not. Texas has roaches the size of rats, right? But in Alaska, there are no roaches, right? So I kind of got lulled into a false sense of security. I'm down there, I meet with these clients. So I show up at their house, and their house, they have like 8 kids, but their house feels like extremely, extremely heavy, like dirty, like it's just gross, right? I hope they're not watching this show, but if they, I'm not mentioning any names. So if you're watching this show and your house is
I don't know
dirty,
how many families in Texas have 8 kids.
Well, a lot more than you'd imagine. So everything's bigger in Texas, including the families. So anyway, so I'm in their house and I'm talking to them, and this was early on in my career. So I'm trying to be professional and I'm explaining, different benefits, different things to them, and then I feel something on my neck. So I slap the back of my neck, and in slapping the back of my neck, I squish something. And so I figured it was like a bug or, fly or mosquito or whatever. So I'm into it, right? And I'm just going through it. And she's like, well, I've got a lot to get done. So do you mind if I continue to make this batch of banana bread so my daughter can take to school with her? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, why not? So she's sitting there with this big old bowl of banana bread batter, mixing it all up, right? And I watch at one time, there's a roach goes crawling across the kitchen counter. Now, I kid you not, man. She takes the spatula out of the batter, whacks the roach on the counter, and puts it back in the batter and starts mixing up the. I was completely grossed out, right? Completely grossed out. Everybody knows in Texas, like, if you have big roaches, that happens. I mean, big roaches, they come in or whatever. I mean, the roaches that are, half inch, that happens. When you have the little bitty roaches, that typically means they're breeding in the house. So there's a food source, there's a habitat there for them. Okay. So when you see the little roaches, you kind of know, yeah, don't mess with it. So I'm leaving the house. And she's like, oh, don't leave. Make sure you take some banana bread with you. And of course, being a nice guy, I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take some crunched up roach bread. So
extra protein.
Right. Extra protein. So I take it. And the first dumpster I come to, man, that loaf of bread goes in the dumpster along with my shirt and my pants, because I'm afraid at this point. Now, I'm terrified of roaches, absolutely terrified of roaches.
As well, you should be.
At this point, I'm considering, hey, they might be in my pocket. There might be eggs, whatever. So, yeah. So I take off my pants. So I drive back to my hotel that night in my skivvies. Yeah, it was an interesting night. So, so that kind of explains to you the extent that I will go.
I'm glad you weren't pulled over by the cops.
Yeah, that would have been kind of weird, wouldn't it? That would have been really weird. So,
can you imagine explaining that one?
I don't think I would have had to explain it, to be honest with you. All I got to tell them is, hey, it did it for the roaches, man. So I don't deal with roaches. The rule in my house is if it's darker than me and it doesn't pay bills, it's got to go. So we don't play with it. So, but yeah, as you can see, typically it is kind of my trademark to wear a hat. If you watched the video that we did about Justin Trudeau, you probably have seen an exchange between myself and a communist comrade named Comrade, who accused me of all things of being a skinhead. And he said, obviously, if I'm wearing a hat, I must be hiding something. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to let my grays out today. I'm going to do the show hatless. I've done plenty of shows hatless, but whatever. And we're just going to have a good time making fun of the weirdness that's going on in our country on the left right now.
You said someone accused you of being a skinhead?
Did you not see it in the comments, man? Yeah, I got accused of being a skinhead. They said, obviously, actually, you know what? I typically would never ever do this, but I got to. It was actually pretty impressive. So I'm actually going to pull up the exact comments because it's actually kind of hilarious. So the guy's name, is it okay if I put his name out there? I mean,
it's on your YouTube. It's on the YouTube comments, right?
Yeah. So
put him on blast.
So the guy's name is Comrade Ostapowicz.
That sounds very Irish to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the deal is, but so he says the dude in the video has outrageous views, all he is trying to do is smear Comrade Trudeau's reputation by spreading neocon lies. Now, look, I can deal with someone calling me a skinhead. So he says, oh man, come on now. Oh, did he delete his message with the skinhead? Anyway, it started off by him calling me a skinhead. And I can deal with someone calling me a skinhead, but to call me a neocon, that's when you've gone too far. Like that'll never be okay in my book. And so then I thought, you know what? Actually, being a skinhead might actually be kind of fun. Maybe I should try it. But they turned down my application, so they will not.
I thought you just had to shave your head and put a swastika tattoo somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
that was the entry.
I offered, but they wouldn't take me. So the only racist organizations that are currently taking people of my skin tone are Black Lives Matter. So, and there's a small pocket of the Black Panthers still surviving, actually, believe it or not, and they'll take me too. But I'm pretty sure once they see some of my videos,
I think you should. They have really cool metal suits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I might even get invited to Wakanda, so I'd be down with that. Totally down with that. But so let's get talking about something real quick. So I thought it was sarcasm. It possibly was. The skinhead comment was a little funny, but someone just said they thought that it was it has to be a sarcastic comment, Comrade Trudeau. It possibly was, but if it was sarcasm, we're having fun with it. It's all good. I don't take any of that stuff too seriously, but I'm having a little bit of a difficulty, buddy. So there's been a whole lot of talk here recently about, is the internet out?
I don't think so. I'm still here.
Okay.
Why?
Well, it froze on my screen for a second there, but a whole lot of talk about Trump and the GOP looking to put together some type of a gun control measure. Have you heard anything about this?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen anything concrete about it. Well, other than it's being talked about.
Yeah. So a pneumatic artist says you only get to visit Wakanda. Wakandans are the most xenophobic people in the Marvel universe.
And they have walls.
They do. They have walls. They will not share their technology, and they don't take refugees. So
they refer to every white person as colonizer.
Well, I'm cool with that, and that's fine.
Which I thought was actually kind of funny in a way, because like what's her face? The Black Panther sister
Yeah.
She refers to the white and any white person as a colonizer.
Right.
But by the end of the film, Wakanda's colonizing the rest of the world.
Yeah. I mean,
right? Because they're wanting to share their technology and expand their influence. Exactly what colonizers do.
I mean, that's an interesting point, because to me it seems as though the only way, and I've said this to Tim, the only way that you can possibly be completely consistent across the board in any way politically is you simply have to be libertarian. That's the only way. I mean, it seems like it seems like inconsistencies are built into the modern day Republican Party and the modern day Democratic Party, to be brutally honest. Just for example, I've talked to a lot of people who are strong red Republicans that's actually do support some form of gun control. This boomer generation is absolutely, to be honest, it's appalling to me, right? Absolutely appalling. How can you possibly? I mean, let me ask you, Soder. I mean, you're a Second Amendment enthusiast as myself, right? What type of gun control could they implement that you would be okay with? And I want to hear from you guys
gun
too.
Control.
No. Let's actually talk about this, because I actually want to hear from the chat as well. What type of gun control measures could Trump come through and offer that you would be okay with?
Well, I don't know if you'd classify it as gun control, but national reciprocity on concealed carry permits. I mean, it's not control per se, but it is dealing with the legalization of carry across the U.S.
That's not really controlling.
That's not really gun control.
That's not really gun control. I think you're going the opposite of that. I don't think that the boomers would be.
I'm compromising in stating that the federal government can actually have that power to do it.
Well, they already have the power to do that. So let me
to create by either legislative or executive command that Minnesota's carry permit is valid in California.
So
I don't agree that they have that power, but if I was to compromise and say, okay, fine, but my permit is valid everywhere else in the states.
So this is my issue, right? Which and again, as a libertarian, I would have an issue with that also, though. That's a sticky subject, because the states should have the rights to. If states, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, because do the states then have the right to reject that? I mean, if federally they allow something, can the state say we don't want that in our state? I mean, I would say that within the Constitution, they have the right to do that, right? I mean, if you support states' rights, so if the state said no, we're not going to allow any type of gun ownership in our state, do they then have the right to do that under the Constitution?
Up until I think it was the 14th Amendment. States had a lot of power that the federal government didn't, right? Because the Constitution says things not outlined here in this Constitution are reserved to the states and to the people. So until you had the 14th Amendment that applied the constitutional law, in particular the amendments, to the states as well and local municipalities, they had a lot of power over what they could do to people. Like they could say, oh no, you're not going to have a printing press in this town because we license those and it's $10 million a year unless your name is whoever's the owner of the New York Times. So once that passed, that really restricted local governments and what they could do when it came to the Constitution and federal law. So to answer your question about the states' rights in that regard, with the Second Amendment, they shouldn't have any power to regulate it at all.
Right.
But we assume they do.
So Pneumatic Autist said, what if they installed licensing depending on the caliber beginners get for like pistols, for example? No license for basic arms, maybe some kind of licensing for fully automatic weapons, a higher tier for explosive weapons. I mean, essentially, that's kind of where we're at this point, right? I mean, you have a class 1 FFL, you have a class 2 FFL, class 3 FFL, right?
And don't forget the shiny badges.
Well, the shiny badges.
Which do grant extra rights.
Said no fully automatic weapons should be legal now. Yeah, I can see why people would say that. I can definitely see why people would say that. Let's leave that one sit for a minute. Let's let that one stew. So let's kind of go through. So I've lived in a few different states, right? Minnesota is by far the most restrictive that I've ever lived in as it pertains to buying a firearm, right? And so just to kind of explain, because there's so much bullcrap out there about Obama saying things like it's easier to get a gun than it is to get a book, and different things like that. That's absolutely a crock of bullcrap, right? Even in the state of Texas, which is probably one of the most lax states, state of Alaska being another extremely lax state as it pertains to possession and ownership of firearms. In the state of Alaska, you do not need a okay, misstated. I was saying fully automatic should be legal. Okay, all right, I can get behind that. So so with that being said, Hugh finally looks like he's not a 90s real player video. You're such a jerk. All right. So, so with that being said, though, so Minnesota, in the state of Minnesota, I can buy any long rifle that I want just by filling out the paperwork. So I have to fill out paperwork with my name, social security number, my description, height, build, all of that. They then call that in to is it the ATF or the FBI? I mean, they call it into the FBI. They run my information.
FBI runs the background check.
They do a background check, and if it is allowable, they'll let me go ahead and take the weapon and walk out. If they do not, then they have what I believe 72 hours to deny me formally and give me a reason why not. If within 72 hours they don't, then the gun store can sell me that weapon, right?
I don't know the exact time, but yes, that is those are the rules.
But that is only for bolt action hunting rifles, I guess you would call them. All right, for lack of getting into the weeds on this thing. Anything with a pistol grip, like an AR-15 or a AK-47, I have to have a permit to purchase in the state of Minnesota, which means I must go into the sheriff's department. The sheriff will run an extensive background check. I have to pay a fee, and then they will give me I've never done the permit to purchase, but is it a piece of paper or is it a card that they give you?
It's a piece of paper that they give you for a permit to purchase, and I don't think there's a fee for it. I believe that's free.
Okay, well, I've never done it.
Permit to carry, you got to pay for.
And I've always just done so that has to be renewed once a year. Okay, so once a year you can get the permit to purchase and you can buy weapons for the year, but each time you purchase a weapon you have to fill out a separate form, FBI background check form. Okay, What I elect to do is to do a carry permit, right? So what that is every 5 years, I go through a more extensive background check. Um, and there's a lot of responsibilities, but in the state of Minnesota, I can't even carry a knife with a blade longer than 6 inches without having a carry permit. Um, so, which I didn't find that out to my last class. So, but I have to sit through a class, I have to shoot at a piece of paper and show that I'm somewhat competent in shooting. And then once I have that, I can then turn around and go and buy firearms. But I still, each time for each weapon that I purchase, I still have to fill out a background check form, and it has to be called in individually. This idea that people just walk into a gun store and walk out 5 minutes later with a weapon is absolutely false. There's not a state in the union that this is actually allowable. But then the other side of it is, so I'm reading this article from Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman, and she says she was so terrified, Soder, that she picked up an AK-47 and held it in her hands, and it was so powerful and so heavy it weighed as much as 10 moving boxes. What the
Empty?
hell? I don't care if it was full. 10 moving boxes. I mean, what the heck, man? I mean, I'm absolutely ticked off because I'm listening to these things and I'm hearing these people speak and I'm hearing the absolute utter bullcrap that's being spewed. You know, I for prep for the show, I went ahead and watched the Alyssa Milano show. I call it a show because that's more what it was like. But the debate, for lack of a better term, that she had with Ted Cruz about gun control. And there was this man who was there.
That actually happened?
That actually happened.
I thought that was a meme. Oh my gosh.
Look it up on YouTube. It actually happened. If you have a hard time sleeping tonight, turn it on. It'll put you to sleep. I guarantee it.
It'll put me to sleep.
Oh my God. It was so, she's so annoying. She's so annoying. Because it's like, in order to listen to these people, you have to turn off your logical side of your brain and you must think solely with emotion. You cannot think logically. You have to be an emotional being. And so there's this guy there, and I get it, and I try to be empathetic. His daughter was killed, I want to say in the Parkland shooting, if I remember correctly. And he goes on to talk about this weapon of war that was used and how the only rifle, the only weapon in the world that could have killed his daughter and could have made this shot was the AR-15. And how she was at the end of the hallway and she was 1 second away from being free. And he shot and it severed her spine with one shot. And how a powerful weapon like that should never be in the hands of civilians. Well, first off, I'm not gonna. Okay, I'm not gonna. First off, that's bullshit. Let's call it what it is. Okay, it's not true. It's false, completely fabricated. Any rifle could have made that shot. I mean, what is a school hallway? 100 feet? Let's say 100. Let's say 50 yards.
Yeah,
For average
50
school
yards.
hallway. 50 yards. Okay. In the state of Minnesota, you can't even hunt deer with an AR-15 because it's a 22 caliber round. Well, what?
You actually can.
With
not,
an AR,
not around where we are. Not where we are, no.
With a 223 round?
You can. Yeah.
No, you cannot use it. No.
I'm pretty sure you can.
Look it up. With a 223 round, a 223 round is not high enough, is not a high enough caliber. Anything 22 caliber cannot be used to hunt deer. You can use rifles in the state of Minnesota, but not anything 22 caliber. It has to be 30 caliber or higher, unless it changed this year. But it completely, it's completely sad to see people having discussions like this, and it goes right back to what Eric Holder said. He said we have to make these people, we have to make these people afraid. We have to make young people afraid of weapons. We have to make young people afraid of guns. And that's been the entire argument here. It is trying to mobilize young people and to get them to turn against and make them afraid of weapons, as opposed to teaching people how to use them. I mean, I would propose that the better idea would be to establish shooting programs in the school, teach kids how to properly use weapons. Um, but this idea that we need to outlaw certain weapons because they're more dangerous than others is absolute bullcrap. But I digress. So, are you looking that up?
The 223, yeah, it is legal in Minnesota. The smallest caliber is 22, and has a center fire.
Okay,
It needs to be at least a 22.
I know at one time
and a center fire ignition. Yeah, it was up until rather recently, but
yeah. At one time, I know I was trying to use a 223, but I was told that I couldn't. That I had to step up to a higher round, and I ended up going to 300 blackout instead of 223. But so I'm sorry, I'm reading some of these comments, but
okay.
Anyway,
to make the show's about.
That is what it's all about. So, so as it stands, so Trump is throwing around the idea of doing a universal background check. Which, can you explain to me? I mean, so what is the difference between a universal background check and the background checks that we're getting currently?
Universal background checks are every time a firearm changes hands, it gets a background check. So if you and I were, if I, let's say I was over at your house, was like, hey buddy, this is a great gun. And you're like, yeah, it's great, but I don't use it that often. I'll sell it to you for $1,000. And I'm like, sold. Well, right now we could make that transaction right then and there.
Right.
But with the universal background check, we'd have to go to a licensed dealer. It basically have to enter his inventory. He'd run the background check, and then I would get the firearm. So, yeah, that's what the universal means, is that sometimes it even goes so far as to, if you were to loan me the weapon, like let's say we were going to go hunting, or I was going to go hunting, but I didn't have the proper gun for the area, or it would just be easier for you to bring yours. For me to use it, I would have to pass a background check for that period of time. It's terrible.
Well, and so I would go so far as to say this. I'm not completely unreasonable. I wouldn't have an issue necessarily with having to do an exchange or do a transfer of ownership. In fact, I wouldn't sell a firearm to anyone without doing a transfer of ownership. That's just my own personal feeling on it.
Oh, you mean have it registered with a dealer?
Meaning
the transaction occurred?
Right. I would go to an FFL. I would transfer it to them and then have them fill out the proper paperwork to buy it. That's just my own personal feeling on it. Only because I if someone is not as comfortable with their, if someone's not as comfortable with, or not as if someone is not as particular about keeping their weapons locked up and keeping them in a safe place, and that if that weapon were to get out and be used and could anyway come back to me, I want to make sure that it's transferred out of my name. That's only for my own personal protection. But the issue that I have with most of these,
here's the thing though, dude. Like, if let's say you buy a gun, let's just say, because it's always the case, it's an AR-15. You go to the local dealer, you buy one, and then a couple months later you're like, I don't like it, and you sell it to someone, and then it's out of your hands, right?
Right.
Well, it doesn't matter if it's to someone you know or someone you don't know, and you don't go to an FFL, or if you go to an FFL, they trace it by the ownership. So it goes, they go, oh, okay, here's the serial number. It was made by Colt. Okay, Colt sold this batch to this dealer, and then this dealer sold it to this dealer that you bought it from, right? So they go to that dealer and they go, okay, who bought this gun from this dealer? Q did. Okay, Q, where's that gun? Then you go, well, I sold it to that guy, or I sold it to that guy, and we went to the FFL. It doesn't matter. You're still going to be asked where it is. It doesn't matter because they follow it as it goes. So even if you sell it to someone else or you go through a dealer, they're still going to come to you and ask you where it went. I mean, maybe if you use the same one you bought it from, it might not be much of an issue. You might not get asked, but again, they're gonna trace it to where it last was in that paperwork, and it's gonna go through you.
Being questioned is not my concern. My concern is being able to prove that I no longer own that weapon.
That's why you keep receipts.
I understand. Like I said, I could live with the idea of having to transfer a weapon, that just like you transfer a title to a vehicle. I'd be okay with that.
Which the state keeps record of. Are you wanting the state to keep records?
And that's where the rub is, right? That's my concern. My concern there is that when Beto comes out and makes these outlandish claims about buying back weapons, well, first off, where's that money going to come from? First off. Secondly, from what I've been told, they're paying a flat $500 per AR that's turned in New Zealand. Now that's just what that's where I read. Okay. Now, whether or not that's totally true, I'm not positive, but that's what I read. If anybody out in the chat knows, but $500 per weapon. Well, that's ridiculous to me because
not a lot.
It's not a lot at all. And
that's a scope.
And so, and from what I've heard, I mean, well, that's about what an EOTech is going to run you. But I mean, I don't think they're buying the EOTech, but even still, I mean, if you're buying a Rock Island, or not a Rock Island, or Rock River Arms, or even Ruger makes an AR style weapon, but I mean, some of these, I mean, they're $1,000 to $1,200 for these things, and I mean, I'm assuming that let's say you have a SOCOM or something of that nature. I mean, well, if you're paying $1,600 for them, and you want me to sell it to you for $500, well, who's getting screwed on that deal? Well, that sounds like a great deal for them. Then what? They turn around and sell it to cartel members like they did in Fast and Furious, right?
Or the police force, because those guys, they need the patrol rifles to subdue the guys who don't turn in their firearms.
Well, that's the frustrating thing to me. So he says there's going to be a mandatory buyback on these weapons, but then he turns around and says what I think is the ultimate goal. Anyone who owns weapons there's gonna have to be a registry. Well, what? So from what I understand about a registry, correct me if I'm wrong, Soder, but with a registry, anyone who owns a weapon basically has to sign up and be kept track of, right? So to my knowledge, registries, it would be kind of like gun store owners, right? So at any time, the ATF can show up, show their credentials, and you have to produce every weapon that they have record of you owning. Is that not? Am I misunderstanding something?
For a dealer?
For a dealer, but from what I've been reading, right? as it pertains to these registries for civilians, they would be subject to the same type of searches.
Probably. I mean, if you have, I forget what all the levels are, but if you have an FFL license, you do allow the ATF to inspect your properties. That's part of the deal.
That is part of the deal. I mean, that's why have zero interest in ever having one. I mean, at one time, of course, I thought it'd be great to have a class 3 and to be able to own fully automatic weapons and all of that. Just I have no desire to ever hurt anyone or use a weapon on anyone, but I like to shoot. It's a lot of fun. I like to go out and I like to shoot targets, and it's a great sport. And if you haven't tried it, try it. And don't just try it one time. Try it a couple different times. Go out and have a good time. I've never known anyone who tried shooting multiple times and came away hating it. Now, I'm sure there's some people out there that would, but most people enjoy it. It's fun. It's a fun experience. As long as you're with people that are decent and don't do stupid crap. But I think it's worth trying. Well, yeah, we'll leave that story for another day. But Pneumatic Artist says Canada had installed a long gun registry. It was a huge failure. They scrapped it a couple years ago. Yeah, I was hearing that. I was while I was up in Canada this last weekend, they were talking about the long gun registry that they put in place specifically for AR-15s. But it was weird because from what I gathered, what I understood about it, you didn't have to register pistols, but you had to register long guns, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Soder, but there's more shootings that take place with pistols than with long guns, right?
I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Statistically speaking, I mean, from the stats that I've seen, far more shootings take place with pistols. So
I could see that. I mean, if you told me, I would go, "Oh, that makes sense."
But it's strange to me that we are moving in this direction where we're waiting for our president, who I've been a strong supporter of most of his policy, but I can say point blank, if he supports any of this legislation, whether it be red flag, whether it be universal background checks, I'm going to be off the Trump train. I can't support it. That is a direct violation to our Second Amendment rights, and it would be tragic to see it. But I'm seeing a lot of our cohorts, people who I've had a lot of respect for a lot of years, that are kind of following along with it. We can be more safe. Well, tell me, at what point has the government ever made us more safe?
When they decided to poison alcohol so no one would drink it.
Well,
it was safe because then no one wanted to drink alcohol. They couldn't get alcohol poisoning or drive cars around and hit people. Makes total sense.
Well, okay, you got me. You got me. So, all right. Well, we'll name another time.
When they decided to take away weapons from people so they couldn't hurt people on planes, and then some guys took over a plane with weapons and flew it into some buildings.
Well, and the problem is
that made us really safe.
The problem is,
and then we got the TSA.
Yeah,
more things were banned from planes, like shampoos.
Yeah,
because someone might pack something in there.
You got to watch out for that shampoo.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the time when they ban underwear from planes, because someone might have packed them full of plastic explosives.
They had that one guy do that one time. Remember the underwear bomber. So so we. Why do you always make it weird?
Because you ask me questions. That's why. Stop asking me questions. I'll stop giving you weirdness.
Oh man. So yeah, he says remember the underwear bomber. Yes, we remember the underwear bomber. So um with that being said, so this week they had a hearing on Capitol Hill, right? And and I'm a supporter of well, do you know Candace Owens is obviously, right?
Yeah, I see her pop up on your on my Twitter feed every once in a while. Like Q DeRugi retweeted this. Candace Owens. Q DeRugi liked this. Q DeRugi replied to this.
I'm so far I'm a fan of hers. She's doing a lot to speak about real issues in Black communities, right? And really refuting this idea that that racism is the biggest issue facing Black America. And so she was essentially attacked in a hearing that she was asked to testify in by this white woman, white splaining how racism and white supremacy was a huge issue in the Black community, and she is considered the foremost the foremost expert on white supremacy in America.
A white person.
and, and she's a Yale graduate, and so I'm like, how do you get that title? How do you get to become the foremost expert on white supremacy in America? I'm thinking, what are your credentials?
Is she Ava Brown or something? Ava Braun, sorry. Not Brown, Braun.
Oh my gosh. And so Candace was completely attacked as a result of this. And so uh she protected herself obviously and brought some really, really good points. But it was interesting to me that no one really wanted to talk about the true issues being fatherlessness, which we've talked about on this show, the breakdown of the minority family has probably contributed more to um, the issues that minorities deal with than anything else. Secondly, being the educational system. The educational system has completely failed many of these kids. I mean, you look at cities like Baltimore, where they pull, a dozen schools and can barely find 20 to 30 kids who are proficient in reading and math. Um, that's that's a shame. I mean, if you have a society of people that can hardly read, that are being raised in single parent homes, you're not really giving them a fair shake. And then to teach those people to turn around and blame someone else for their problems, as opposed to blaming the very government that is supposed to be. I mean, they're taking our tax dollars and saying we're going to give you great education, and oh yeah, by the way, we're also going to give you we're going to protect you, and we're going to give you we're going to give you free healthcare and free housing and groceries, but you can't have a man. You can't be married. You have to be single. I mean,
Look at me. I am the husband now. Says the government.
But it's how can they not see
Or
that
I am a jealous government.
I am a jealous government. How can they not see that these types of policies are leading to this not only lawlessness but this depravity that we're seeing going rampant, right? But yet people continue to vote for these things and continue to get more of the same. I don't see the lifestyle or the lives of Black Americans getting better under societies that are primarily Democrat run. Unfortunately, it seems to be getting worse. But anyway, I digress. Uh, the biggest takeaway though this week, which I think we got to have a little bit of fun with this, is did you hear Joe Biden stick his foot in his mouth again this week?
I think you're gonna have to be a little more specific, buddy.
I thought you'd never ask. So Joe Biden is pandering for the trans vote, right? Which,
yeah,
are there that many trans people?
Well, it seems like there are.
I
mean,
maybe I just
we're
live in the
talking
wrong
about it at a
place.
national level. It fills just about every topic that it touches just about every topic that's ever talked about. So there's got to be a lot of them.
Well, but statistically, there's not. Statistically, there's not. Anyway, I digress. So at the point that you put someone else's, and look, I'm not arguing against people having the right to be trans. I think you would agree with me that if someone wants to be trans, they have the right to do that, right?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a silly choice sometimes, but
that notwithstanding, they have the right to be trans. And if a person is trans, that they have human rights, they have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. And I will treat them with dignity and respect. At the point that their rights supersede my rights, then we have a problem, right? So
Agreed.
he's making an argument that male convicts that identify as female should be in female prisons.
Okay. I mean, they are females though, remember. So they should be in a female prison.
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing would go wrong. Absolutely nothing. What are you talking about? Everything would be fine.
I mean,
women aren't violent.
It's getting absolutely frustrating, and I honestly thought that this whole thing was going to probably fade out, because I figured that parents would stand up for their children. I thought that at the point that you had these young people working their butts off to become more competitive in various sports like track and field and boxing and wrestling and these types of sports, and these young women were having to compete against genetic males, that parents would stand up.
That, man. They could have been females. They probably were. I mean,
I get it.
Are you some sort of bigot? Women can't beat women in sports?
All I know is that there is and I wish Nick were on the show because he knows exactly what I'm talking about, but there's a female, I'm sorry, a transgender. No, help me with this. So it's a transgender female. Is that a dude that does a transgender female have?
Don't think about it. Just call it a female.
No, I want to make sure I get this right? So is a transgender
There's no getting it right.
No, does a transgender female have balls or a vagina?
Doesn't matter. Still a woman.
Okay. Okay. So there is a fighter that fights females that has balls. All right. So whether it's transgender male or transgender female, I'm not sure. I'm not sure which you list first, but just absolutely beating the brakes off of other women. Now, tell me, if I were to be caught fighting women and beating women, would the Me Too movement protect me and say I was simply fighting? If I identified as a woman at the time that I got apprehended, would that be an acceptable defense?
Probably.
This is going to be very interesting moving forward. The next time, like the next time that Debo gets arrested for domestic violence, I tell you, I would love to see him come out and say, no, I'm absolutely a 6'5", 350-pound female with
Yeah, of course.
4% body fat.
And and that what you think is a woman over there identifies as a man. She was beating on me.
Because I'm trans.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
It was discrimination. She was beating me because, and I was just simply protecting myself because she's a bigot and she doesn't like trans people. It's ma'am. Yeah, I like it. I absolutely like it. I think it needs to happen. Um, only if you were a liberal. Oh, yeah. So I guess these videos that I post from time to time would probably find their way into evidence at some point. So I wouldn't be able to use that defense, right?
That you're not a woman.
That I am. That deep down I've now discovered that I am a woman.
There's the soundbite right there. We're good to go.
There we go. So just cut that out and you can play that 4 or 5 times and say, hey, you know what? Free Miss Q. Ugh. Wow. That's a, what if I identify as a dog and she beats me? Is that animal abuse? It is. It's animal cruelty.
Well, pneumatic honest, if you're a man, it also counts as animal abuse.
Okay, fair. You've heard it straight from the mouth of Soder. So yeah, absolutely. No, it's just it just points to the fact that these people are doing whatever they can to pander to the vote, and I'm thinking, why? Why? I mean, it's not like people have just now. I mean, I've known people that were trans for years, right? Why is it now all of a sudden a big issue? And could it possibly be that they're pandering for votes because they realize that Trump is absolutely destroying them in the polls?
Unless he destroys himself with his gun stuff.
I truly believe that if he does pass gun control measures, that it will hurt him quite considerably. I truly believe that. There are a lot of libertarians out there that have supported him, and I think that it will cause an issue. I was talking to my wife, and she thought I was just being overreacting and being a conspiracy theorist because I have a tendency to do that every once in a while. Um, according to Star Tribune, right? But I'm never racist though. I might be a conspiracy theorist every once in a while, but I'm never racist. So,
a skinhead who's never racist. Huh.
Well, ask comrade. So we're driving down the road and we're looking at the fuel prices, and fuel prices have gone up considerably over the last few days. And she's like, well, what's going on with fuel? I said, well, as soon as they blew up that um, oil facility in I was gonna say Siberia, in Saudi Arabia,
A little bit further south, buddy.
in Saudi Arabia, I mean, it was bound to happen, right? And so she says, well, if Iran did that, you know, what is the president going to do? And I said, well, I don't think the president has any other choice but to retaliate at this point, right? I mean, his hands are kind of tied. I mean, doesn't he have to intervene somehow, some way?
I mean, if we had some sort of treaty, maybe.
Forget the treaty.
But
From a purely political standpoint, if people have to pay $5 a gallon for gas to go to the polls, how do you think that's going to go for the sitting president?
do you remember, was it mid 2000s when we started hearing no blood for oil? I imagine something like that.
I don't know. I was in Alaska at around that time, so yeah, everything was expensive. So I don't think we really paid close attention.
No. The starting a war, going to go fight someone like Iran. would be a similar. I foresee it being similar after it starts of no blood for oil, right?
Right.
That was a major chanting point of the left when Bush was in office, was like, we're only over there for oil. We're not there for terrorists. No blood for oil. And then I can see something similar with Trump going, why are we going to war with Iran? This is just because of oil.
Well, I mean, Iran, I mean, it was strategic. It was a very strategic move on Iran's part, right? Because we are not buying their oil. There have been sanctions put on them. Um, what does Iran really have as a major export product? I mean, they don't really create, there's no agriculture, there's no automobile manufacturing. There's not a lot of manufactured goods coming out of Iran other than crude. So by trying to put a dent in the exports of the largest exporter of oil, Saudi Arabia, by putting a dent and creating a void and creating a vacuum, you have two choices, right? You can either engage us, which Trump has already said he doesn't want to do, or you can start buying oil from us, or you can just let your people pay an outlandish price for crude oil.
Well, last time, all right, so remember when prices started getting really high number of years ago? And it started to make sense for the oil fields in North Dakota to go, the fracking that went on, right? And then that drove the price down. It partially drove the price down because Saudi Arabia did not want to lose the business. They were lowering their prices to push fracking out of business.
Well,
right, in which they kind of succeeded in a little bit.
They slowed it down extremely, but then we also saw the other side of that once Obama lifted the sanctions on Iran, and then Iran started flooding the market with oil, that the price went down considerably. I mean, gas was down to what, $1.20 for a while there. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but it's going to be very interesting. We'll be watching this really closely because I don't know that there's any way that he can not intervene at this point. I hope that he can find a way to not intervene, but politically, it almost seems as though he's going to have to intervene somehow, some way.
I hope not. I hope it's not Gulf War Part 3.
I don't know that. I don't, because of the militant nature of and the I don't know that it would be the same. Iran is a totally different animal than Iraq. I think it would be a major mistake to engage Iran. Iran would be Iraq times 2. I really do believe that. Especially with understanding that they have already experimented with nuclear capabilities and things like that. I just don't want to see it. I don't want to see it at all. But we'll see what our president decides to do. But that was one thing that I was very, very pleased with him about, and that was after the drone was shot down. What was this, about a month and a half ago? By Iran.
Sounds about right.
And he decided that he was not going to engage them because it would take innocent lives if he did, and because no lives were taken and it was a unmanned drone, that he was going to let it slide. And people around him were pushing him. You have to respond with fire. You have to fight back. And he chose not to. And I thought that was for someone that we've been told is unhinged, and for someone that we've been told for 3 years that they were a loose cannon. I thought that was an admirable response. I mean, what was your thought on it, and what is your thought on it? How would you deal with the situation in a similar?
Probably similar. Like no lives lost. Yeah, it's oh shoot, something's playing. Just a second. All right. Oh, thank goodness. Um, it you start when you start fighting, the outcome's never known, right? Like even the biggest fighter, the best fighter, can lose to a lucky punch. Same thing with wars. Like going into World War II, Germany had the upper hand on a lot of things. And then plucky United States joined into the match and everything just went the opposite way. Now there are a lot of reasons why that happened, but but as it comes to drones, like there's nobody there. It's just a drone who no one died. Yeah, it's kind of a slap in the face, but guess what? It's a slap in the face. You're not going to die from it. Um, kind of reminded of a wise man who once said, "Let them hit the other cheek." Right?
Who was that?
I don't know. Just some wise guy from back in the day. I forget his name.
Wise guy from back in the day. And that sounds like heresy, but go ahead.
So, like, there's nothing of value really lost in that thing. I don't even know. I don't even remember where that
the $100 million that the drone cost, maybe. But.
Well, yeah, but it's not a life. That's a little different.
Is your life worth $100 million?
Probably not. At least that's what the insurance company thinks, anyway.
They don't think mine's worth $100 million. So, yeah.
But you know, I don't know where the drone was exactly. They felt that it was prudent to shoot it down, whether that was because it was in their own airspace or not is kind of inconsequential. Again, it's a drone. It's not a destroyer. We weren't aggressing on them terribly, I would imagine. I don't know much about what the drone where the drone was or what it was doing, just that it was shot down. But like back in the day, if you shot at a ship, yeah, the ship's going to shoot back. But these unmanned drones, who cares? I mean, I'd probably follow a similar path to that. That look, they didn't actually hurt us. We could just ignore them for now.
Right.
Like in the case of a bully, what do you usually do? Well, punch if the bully actually hits you, you punch them in the face. But if they're just taunting you, you just ignore them.
I don't know. I usually do.
I would almost argue if Iran is getting so desperate that they're starting to attack, like blow up this oil field or this oil refinery, that's a sign that things are getting pretty bad for them. Let them implode on their own.
I don't know about you, but typically if a bully is trying to pick a fight with me, I ask them on record if they are male or female. And then judging by that answer will determine my next course of action. So never let it be said that Quentin is a woman beater. So just want to make sure. You can never be too careful these days there, buddy.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
So, but no, it's an interesting time. It's an interesting place. I do find myself being slightly concerned with with where we are because I don't see any way forward peaceably if they're going to continue to do things like this. I mean, Saudi Arabia is an ally, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Last but not least, are you well? Okay, so Tekashi 6ix9ine he was a rapper. He was jailed for he was jailed for racketeering, for a whole laundry list of stuff. Essentially, he was a gangbanger. Now, it's weird to me that all rappers claim to be gangbangers, but if they actually are a gangbanger, now it's a problem, right? So the problem is that Tekashi 6ix9ine was actually telling the truth in his songs about the things that he was doing. And though the government could not let that stand, you can sing about it and you can encourage other people to do it, but we better not find out that you're actually doing it. So he starts blowing the whistle on Cardi B, who, yeah, we've talked about Cardi B a couple times on the show, and Nick and I have discussed it. She's a disgusting, despicable individual. But he starts to blow the whistle that she's actually a blood gang affiliate, and and so now they are putting a hit. He's in jail, and now they're calling for a hit on him in jail. And somebody needs to get a hold of Tekashi and just explain to him the federal government cannot protect him in jail. I mean, see how well that worked out for Epstein. So,
yeah, not very well. Not very well at all.
He could be suicided in jail. Just because you're in jail doesn't mean you're untouchable. So Tekashi needs to be careful. It
means they know where you are.
It means they know exactly where you are, and you can't run. Well, you can, but not too far. So, but no, it was an interesting story that came out about him. You know, and it wasn't so much the fact that he was blowing the whistle on these people, and it wasn't even so much to me the fact that that it made such big news. The issue to me was the response. The Twitter response was pretty troubling because immediately people were, oh, he's a snitch and snitches get stitches. Immediately he was the bad guy. And it's like, have we really come to the place where we call good evil and evil good? I mean, the guy is blowing the whistle and saying, hey, these guys are doing this and they're breaking the law and they're criminals. And rather than us saying thank you for that information, we're going to try to see that truth and honesty prevail. No, instead, we're going to attack the person who actually told the truth and is actually blowing the whistle on this. Like, is that really the world we live in?
I guess. I mean, seems that way. Actually,
it's kind of absurd.
Funny aside, my wife. Just a second.
It's absolutely absurd to me that we live in a time and a place where we can protect criminals and we can essentially hang honest people out to dry, that we would call him a snitch, but we would be okay with people doing the things that they're doing. I mean, Cardi B was already in trouble, I mean, for a short period of time for claiming before she became a rapper as a stripper.
Okay, sorry about that. My little girl came in to say goodnight to me rather unexpectedly. And a couple things. One, she asked me if you were Nick Rekieta. And the second thing is she said you have big lips.
First off, my lips are getting smaller. Thank you very much. And
yes,
secondly,
I was gonna ask you, have your lips been losing weight? Have you been working them out at all?
Yeah, you can.
You doing lifts?
Yeah, you can tell your daughter that I am far more handsome than Nick Rekieta, and yeah, she needs to be checked on that. So. But I suppose she's.
I mean, you have to forgive her. You two look a lot alike.
Yeah, we do. There is an uncanny resemblance between myself and Boomer Nick. So, absolutely. So, but in speaking of children and speaking of positive news, the children of America have spoken up and they are saying now that they will not be having children until we address climate change.
Well, that makes my job easier. Because the way I'm thinking about this is, like if I raise my children right, they're gonna follow in the path that I set before them, and eventually, my bloodline will outnumber theirs. It's going to make it a lot easier to elect officials who agree with my political stances than them.
You've got like you've got a gaggle of kids, so what? A couple dozen.
Do.
So
about that by now.
Yeah. So I mean, you've pretty much repopulated a small town yourself already, so you're well on your way. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of jokingly said we wish liberals would just stop breeding. So I think that we might have gotten our wish. They're taking themselves off the market, and so that'll take care of the pro-life issue, and it'll also take care of the liberal derangement syndrome that we're dealing with. So I fully support their decision.
Doesn't matter. I mean, we don't need abortion if all the people who would do abortion aren't doing abortion.
There you go.
They don't have kids. They're not having kids. So
yeah, who would have known that abstinence is a form of birth control? I mean, go figure, right?
I had no idea.
So yeah, I'm amazed that we didn't figure this out sooner, but at least we got it figured out now. So
I mean, I can't believe it took how old is human civilization? 20,000 years.
I
can't believe it took us that long to figure out that abstinence leads to no children.
Yeah, but abstinence is no fun either. So I suppose that's the whole part of it. So, and we'll leave it at that. Although Alyssa Milano did say that until that she was going to support abstinence and support no sex until abortion were made fully accessible and legal countrywide. And I'm thinking, well, that's really the route that you want to go. That was always.
It sounds like we're fighting for the same thing here, Alyssa.
Right? It's strange that the less people have sex, the fewer abortions. I mean, go figure, right? There's a direct correlation between the two. So yeah, I who says that we can't all get along? So
it's almost like that the 1984 we've always been at war with Eurasia new speak is infected a lot of people's minds. Well, like the contradictory idea of, well, I'm not going to have sex, I'm not going to have kids until I can kill them.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're not killing your kids. Thanks for joining my side, I guess.
When you really break things down, and that's the funny part. If you notice that there's some arguments that if you break down to their most elementary level, they become absurd arguments. And when you truly get rid of all the double talk, get rid of the double speak, get rid of all of the flowery words, and you actually look at the argument on its own merits, so many arguments really break themselves down. For example, the one you just mentioned, you're saying that you want to reserve the right to kill your own child. And until you are given the right to commit murder, you will not be producing any children. What the actual hell are we talking about?
You're making this sound like a waiting game here, because I just need to wait for you to not be able to have children, which happens a lot sooner for you than me, Miss Milano.
Right? I mean, I'm thinking, one generation, and we've cured stupidity. I mean, it won't take that long. I mean, there's always the occasional oops and uh-ohs, but I mean, yeah, essentially it's just like you said, it's a waiting game. But it's such a stupid argument. But this whole idea, I really would love to do a whole show on climate change. Just because they've really hedged their bets, have they not? I mean, because when you and I are close to the same age. I'm a little older than you, but when I was growing up, I used to watch Captain Planet. I was all about that life, and
it was a fun show.
It was a fun show. I didn't realize I was being indoctrinated or tempted to be indoctrinated, but
it does make me wonder about the cartoons my children watch.
Well, we got to watch it a little bit closer now that we're woke, right? But but it was absolutely insane to me that in watching this, that it was all about global warming. Well, somewhere around the early 2000s, it went from global warming when we started having these the El Niños, and all of a sudden we're getting colder than normal temperatures across the northern Pacific, and also the Northeast. That no, it's no longer global warming; it's now climate change. Well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I mean, in its very nature, doesn't the climate change?
Yeah, and I recall there being stuff in the 60s and 70s about global cooling, that we're going to see,
and they were calling
glaciers back in Minnesota.
They were calling for an ice age in 1970s. I mean, so
we've gone from one extreme to the next, and they're like, "Oh shoot, people have realized what we've done. The climate's going to change. It's just going to change. Like, it doesn't matter if it gets colder or hotter. It's going to change. So that's we're doing it."
Well, Al Gore goes out to say that there's going to be famines and floods. Well, way to hedge your bets there, Al.
Well, yeah. There are a lot of those, actually.
Yeah. Famines and floods. Well, I mean, you're bound to hit it one way or another. So, but yeah, so it's interesting. But I fully support Alyssa Milano. There's another soundbite for you in her decision to practice abstinence until the right to kill your child has been made a federal right in every single state in America. So I fully support that, and I will carry the banner for you, Miss Alyssa Milano. We should get her on the show. That would be fabulous.
Oof.
I'd have to shoot myself in the face. Oh, that would be something else. Oh, especially go back and watch her gun debate with Ted Cruz. It was
gosh, he has kids. Shoot, I was gonna make a joke about her, removing herself from the gene pool, but
yeah, no, she's already
she hasn't. And and oh my gosh, I can't. It's got to screw up your kids, right? Like, I wish I could have killed you.
Yeah,
is what she said.
I only had you because I didn't have the right to kill you. So, yeah,
you can couch it with, "Oh no, I wanted you."
Yeah, I just didn't want any more of you.
Are you saying that now, Mom, because I'm here and I'm talking to you? Like, and you don't want me to send you into this old person's home right now? Like,
said, unless I guess you are a fundamental Christian, then just a flood. There has been, I think, it's a reference to multiple ice ages. I don't think that being a Christian removes you from believing in an ice age.
I think he might mean like one of the really young Earth ones.
Yeah, I get that, and I have my own theories on the whole young Earth deal, but yeah, not the time or the place, but it would be a very, very fun topic. I need to get my dad on that show. That would be a good one.
Which
So,
direction does he? Which way does he swing?
oh, he's 100% young Earth. I mean, he believes that the Earth is somewhere around 10,000 years old.
Okay. Sorry, my
So,
comment earlier about human civilization 20,000 years earlier.
oh yeah, he's shaking his finger at the screen right now. I guarantee it. So, um, but yeah, no, I know a lot of people who believe that way. I mean, if you buy into the theory of an ice canopy over the Earth, that does account for some things. But again, I don't think that if we get into this topic, I think we'll be on the show till this time tomorrow. So,
Yeah, we don't want to get into church's time.
no, we don't want to get into church's time, but let's try to see if we can get Nick on the creation stream. That would be,
oh boy, that would be something.
That would be fantastic. I would love to get Nick on a creation stream. Let's make it happen. Let's definitely make it happen. But
Right,
guys,
talk to your dad.
I will talk to my dad, and I will just sit back with a nice cold beverage and watch and listen. And I'm sure Tim has to have he has to have an opinion in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure what that opinion is, but I would love to hear it. So, and I would like to hear yours too. I mean,
you want to hear it? I can sum it up right now. Who cares?
You're not allowed to have that opinion. That's not a real opinion. You can't have that opinion.
No, it is a real opinion. It is a real opinion. Because I can't know. Like, does it matter for my salvation if the Earth is 6,000, 10,000, or 1,000 million years old? It doesn't matter to my salvation.
Sounds like a compromiser to me. Sounds
like someone who doesn't care.
Yeah, it sounds like you're just trying to be lukewarm. You're a lukewarm Christian.
I don't remember Christ saying something about needing to accept that the Earth is 6,000 years old or several billion trillion.
So
and then you're fine.
This is the hard part, right? The hard part is that everyone uses adding up the years of Adam and Methuselah and Lamech and Abraham, adding all these lives together, adding their ages together, and essentially walking it back and saying, okay, essentially we can deduct that the Earth is somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 years old based on those numbers. The problem is that if you believe that, and I'm not getting into what I believe, but if you believe that death came as a result of Adam's original sin, right? And I'm sure you've learned that, right? That the penalty of sin was death.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I would couch it a little bit more. From what I remember, it's more of a separation from God than death was.
Well,
but anyway, go on.
Okay, so Christianity teaches, for the most part, that there was no death prior to the fall of man, right? That the Creator said, "The day that you eat of the tree, you will surely die," right? So clearly, there was no death prior to the penalty of sin, but it also says later on in the New Testament that the wages of sin was death. And so death passed upon all men because all of sin. So clearly there was a correlation between sinning and dying. Well, prior to actual sinning, there was no death. I mean, supposedly, right? I mean, just that would be the deduction. The issue I have with that is if Adam were intended to never die and he were this incorruptible being, and his body were not to die, then that 960-year-old man that we read about in the Bible, would that have started counting from the day that he ate of the fruit, or would that start counting from the day that he was created? Because why would you count the years that we could say, and I'm not going to say this, but is it possible to think that maybe Adam was in the garden for 1,000,000 years? Maybe he lived that long?
I mean, from what I recall, I don't remember anything that would contradict that thinking.
I don't either, but again, it's just something to ponder on. But we will have a Earth stream very, very soon here. I would like to get some input from smarter men than I, but if I recall correctly, the Bible speaks of two types of death: the spiritual and the physical. All who are not saved are doomed to the second death. But yeah, that comes after the physical death. So and if yeah, we could, Zach, we could have that conversation for sure. But I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So, but hey, I'm daddy and mommy tonight. So my children have been very, very good. They have not come in to bug me while doing the show. So, but their movie will be going off here pretty soon. So but thank you guys so much for joining the stream. I appreciate it. Yeah, if they came in now and saw you, so they probably would think you were their uncle. Because kids being colorblind and all. So say, is that Uncle Christian? But anyway, hey, you guys have a great evening. Thank you so much. Hey, if you do not currently subscribe to everyone look that's currently in the chat or currently watching now, look and see if you have pressed the button, if you are subscribed to the channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please be sure to do so. We are so close to getting to our 4,000 hours, and that is in large part to having such a phenomenal group of subscribers. So thank you guys for supporting the show. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for participating. It's always good to hear from you guys in the chat. So we will put this stream together. I think it would be a fun one. I think a lot of people would get in. Guys, once again, the whole purpose of this show was to get many people from different walks of life, from different backgrounds. A very good friend of this show, Church of Failure, he claims to be an atheist. You know what? I love the guy. He's a great guy. I don't think that I limit myself, and I try not to limit myself to people around me who believe and think the same way that I do. That's stupid. You cannot grow as a person or as an individual simply by surrounding yourself by like-minded people. You have to surround yourself by people who think differently, that will challenge your thinking. Otherwise, you'll never grow as a person. So, and I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate those people who do help me to challenge my thinking. So, you guys have a great night. Have a great evening. Be sure to check out Church of Failure after this show. We should be starting up here in about 30 minutes. So,
yeah, 10 o'clock EST.
All right. Well, Soder, have a great night. Great visiting with you. And
you too. Good luck, Mr. Mom.
Out of the darkness. Have a great night.